We now must say goodbye. We've lost our good advice.
Oh, our friends out there, Alvarez, still with us. I've read about 20 of your papers so far, and I don't know who's going to win this case. Some of you have pretty definite ideas that we should explore today. So our friend Alvarez is probably not a First Amendment hero, unless he's not a real world hero. We know that. He admits that he's not a real world hero. But maybe he'll become a First Amendment hero if he wins his case for lying about having the Medal of Honor. The statute, of course, that he was convicted under, you're well familiar with it. This is all just to remind you that it's a federal crime to falsely represent, either in writing or orally, that you've gotten a medal. And Alvarez pleaded guilty to violation of that. The Congress found, when they enacted the statute, that its purpose was to protect against damage to the reputation and meaning of the military medal program. I suppose you would look to congressional findings to find out what the government's interest is. So if you're saying they have an important interest or a compelling interest, what is that interest? Well, Congress tells us it's the interest in preventing damage to the reputation and meaning of the medals program. The law was found unconstitutional on its face in the Ninth Circuit. Rehearing was denied. The Supreme Court granted certiorari last October, and the case came up for argument on February 22nd. All of that's up till now, and we're breathlessly awaiting the Supreme Court's decision. And I want to take some polls. This is where it would be handy to have clickers. Has anybody got any experience with clickers? Yeah, I wish we had them here. Maybe I can do count. Alex, can I ask you to be a counter? And I'm going to ask people, can I ask you to be a counter? You get this half of the room, starting with Tina going this way. And you get this half of the room. Okay. Who won this case in your decisions, in the papers that you wrote? Who won this case? How many people, all of you, decided the case for the government? Adam? How many? 5? Plus? Okay. And how many of you decided it for Alvarez? Count them. More than 2 to 1 for the liar. They sent you to Berkeley to learn that there's a constitutional right to lie? That would be amazing. Okay, for those of you, the 14 of you who said that the government wins, who wrote the majority opinion? So holler out the names of who wrote the majority opinion. Kennedy? Scalia? Who? Robert? How many of you who found that the government would win had Roberts writing the opinion? 1 plus 2, 3, that's all? 4? And how many of you had the government winning and Scalia wrote the opinion? 2, 3, 4? Kennedy? Well, somebody did. 1? Alito? Just 1? Anybody else who found for the government? And then for Alvarez, who wrote the majority opinion? Okay. Huh? Wait a second. We'll start with Roberts. How many had Roberts writing the opinion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Who else? And how many had Kennedy writing the opinion? 1, 2, 3, 4. And so somebody had Sotomayor? How many were those? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Kira? No. Who else? Anybody else write the majority opinion? Do these add up? No, that's 16. That's 20, 25. 5 people. Who's writing the majority opinion for? It was a per curiam opinion. And these don't add up either. Very curious. Some of you had, like in the Pentagon Papers, every justice apparently writing opinion. I don't think it'll go that way. Roberts is on both sides of this, and Kennedy is on both sides of this. So Kennedy writes the majority opinion finding for the liar, and Kennedy writes the majority opinion for the government, and Roberts does too, in a lot of cases. Does that have anything to do with the fact that he's Chief Justice? Yeah, it does? Walter, why? Yeah, he can. I mean, he assigns, if he's in the majority, he assigns the opinion, and he can assign it to himself. So he has that power. Apparently he has the power if he's in the minority too. We'll find out about that. All right?
I read somewhere that Chief Justice Roberts, like I said, he's thinking against white, especially for Christian.
Yeah. Well, he wrote Stevens, the animal case, and he wrote Snyder versus Phelps, the funeral protest case, 2 recent. First Amendment cases, which might give you a clue of his sensitivity to First Amendment values and might make him the majority opinion author in going for Alvarez, but I don't know how he fits in writing for the government, other than the clues that we pick up from argument, where the oral argument indicated that that he has some doubts about the case. What about the dissenters? Let's see, if you found for the government, if the government's going to win the case, who wrote the dissenting opinion? Or opinions, Mark? Scalia? How many had Scalia dissenting? 1, 2, 3, 4. That is, the government wins the case, and Scalia's dissenting. No? No? Okay. The government wins the case. Who wrote the dissenting opinion, Johanna? Kennedy. How many had Kennedy dissenting? Just one other. Any other? Must have been other dissenters if the government wins, yeah. Sotomayor? And how many others had her dissenting if the government wins? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Any other dissenters? And how many had her dissenting? Just one? You had one. You had another unique situation, didn't you? What was that? What was it? Oh, Alito writes the opinion for the government. Sotomayor. That seems reasonable, doesn't it? Yeah. Okay. If then Alvarez wins, who dissents? Okay. Well, but who's the author of the dissent or of a dissenting opinion? Okay, Scalia. How many people have Scalia dissenting? Oh my God. Okay. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 14, 15, 16, 17. Who else wrote dissent? Roberts. How many of those? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Any other dissenters who actually wrote opinions? Alito. And how many had Alito dissenting? 1, 2. Okay. Other dissenters? Aaron? Kagan. Oh, that's interesting. Anybody else have Kagan dissenting? Alvarez wins. Kagan dissents. Sam? Yeah. Writing a dissenting opinion. Those get closer to adding up. What does this tell us anyway? It's complicated. Yeah, it definitely is complicated. It's not a slam dunk either way, and having justices on both sides, like Roberts, Kennedy, on both sides of the issue, is enlightening and puzzling. And what to make of it? Did anybody have somebody writing concurring opinions? Yeah, what was that about? Alito was concurring in favor of Alvarez. What was his thinking? Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. In favor of Alvarez. And who wrote the majority opinion? And they didn't like what Roberts had to say, or Roberts left out something crucial? You what? All right. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Because
is that when he went to scholar or something that she was very skeptical about having too much free speech and just protecting all kinds of speech and whether they made sense or not.
when she was a scholar, the article that she wrote, or one of the articles that she wrote. Did you read the article?
Not the article, just
I hadn't read the article either.
I have so many articles and also around, but Robert's wrote minority opinion theory and all that. So my articles wrote on matters of sentiment, but they're all effective and comfortable, but they're not making laws and not fighting on an emotional basis. She's really focused on it, very black and white as well.
The emotional, this is Sotomayor speaking, yeah, she said something like that in an argument, didn't she? Let's find out how each justice voted and see if that pattern, if there's any pattern there. Gonna need counters again. Okay, how many people had Roberts not writing an opinion, but voting with the government? Time up. Yeah. Yeah, regardless of how the case came out, how many people had Roberts voting on the government side? The government should win the case, regardless of how you said they did win the case. And how many had Roberts voting for Alvarez, regardless of how the case came out? How many? 19? Close call on Roberts. Well, should we rank them by ideology? Or let's do that. Okay. Alito. How many people had Alito voting for the government, regardless of whether you were in? No. 15 and 21? Mm-hmm. And how many people had Alito voting for Alvarez? A contrarian. Okay. Thomas. How many people had Thomas voting for the government? And how many people had Thomas voting for Alvarez? Scalia for the government? How many? And how many had Scalia voting for Alvarez? The man in the middle? Kennedy, how many had him voting for the government? And how many people had him voting for Alvarez? Oh. 10? Moving to the left wing, let's see. Who's next in terms of liberal conservative stuff anyway? How about Breyer? How many people had Breyer voting for the government? And voting for Alvarez? Oh, really? Can you say? Kagan. Government. She voted for the government. And for Alvarez? Who are we missing here? Ruth Bader Ginsburg. How many had her voting for the government? Nobody had Ginsburg voting for the government? Really? Oh my goodness. Everybody else? You don't remember. The decision was just 3 days ago. All right, I'm going to say that this was unanimous. Ginsburg was on Alvarez's side. Sotomayor, how many people had her voting for the government? Amazing. And so she was unanimously in the liars camp. And what do we make of this? Alito is strongly the strongest pro-government justice on the court. And on that lineup, taking all those votes, you got 1, 2, 3 votes for the government. That's all. It comes out 6-3. Right? If the class as a whole were the court, it would come out 6-3. Well, if the government wins, well, let me ask you this about Roberts. For those who have Roberts writing the opinion for Alvarez, which was a substantial number of you, how do you deal with his comment during argument where he asked the question, and I take it was a bit of a skeptical question, maybe even sarcastic. What is the First Amendment value in a lie, a pure lie? So those of you who had him writing for Alvarez, how did you cope with that?
I took the chief's remark that there may not be any First Amendment value in a lie, but there is First Amendment value in freedom to be able to lie without worrying about the police coming to arrest you. And in the community, Robert can see that one. There may not be any value, but we can't police it, and there's no one to control the police.
Why do you think he asked the question, though? Doesn't the question imply that he thinks that there's no First Amendment value in a lie?
I think he may think there's no First Amendment value in a lie, but I also think he recognizes that if you were to litigate on that, that's you, which would open the door for a lot of issues and a lot more down.
So in the heat of battle, he may have thought, no First Amendment value in a lie, but when on calm reflection, mature reconsideration, he realizes that there is some value in a lie. What were you going to say? You had Roberts writing for Alvarez? Those people who thought Roberts would write for Alvarez didn't get a lot of help from his comments and questions during argument. I mean, it's true that he, I don't say badgered, but questioned the government lawyer, Don Verrilli, about where do you stop? You know, what are we going to do when Congress enacts a law that says everybody who lies about having a high school diploma or a college degree, which are important values in our society that Congress wants to promote, can it then punish people who lie about things like that? That's indicates open-mindedness, I think, and that he could rule for Alvarez in that way. He seems to want to distinguish lying in political campaigns. That came up during the arguments. And he said, well, lying about your qualifications for office or your opponent's qualifications for office in the political campaign context, he says there's nothing